Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Madolche Yugioh deck profile for January 2024. I never realized that the Madolche deck kind of slipped past me with my last update. I think the last update to this deck on my channel being back in November of 2022. So well over a year since the last update, but still a deck that I regularly played for fun at locals. Whenever someone asked me to bring a fun deck to play, this was definitely one of the contenders that I would use, just being a very fun one that focuses on being able to shuffle back your opponent's resources with cards like Madolche Queen, Tiara Masu, but also being able to have setup for some of the other monsters very easily with all of the shuffle back shenanigans that you can do with your own Madolche monsters as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For the Madolche monsters, we'll start off with our main deck boss monster being Madolche Pudding Cess. We only run the one copy. It's really all you need for the setup. It gains 800 attack and defense while you have no monsters in your graveyard. If this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card and sent to your graveyard, shuffle this card into the deck. And the Madolches do share, for a good majority of them, this shuffle back power. And after damage calc, if it battles an opponent's monster, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. So then you have this card also needed as a regular staple for our Xyz monster, Madolche Pudding Cess, Chocolate a la Mode. So we run this copy to also have for that play, which can easily be set up with Petting Sour for our use of this card for a rank 4 Xyz play, which we'll go over in a bit. For the 3 ofs, we run 3 copies of Madolche Magdalene. If it has the shuffle back effect as well, and when it's normal or flip summon, you can add one Madolche monster from your deck to your hand. So an easy search, depending on the Madolche monster you may want. Relying on Magdalene for that search power, we'll normally go for Petting Cess Soar. So we have an easy special summon. Since you have no monsters in your graveyard, you can just special summon this card from your hand onto the field. But before we go over Petting Cess Soar, we run 3 copies of Angeli as well. With this card, you contribute it to special summon 1 Madolche monster from your deck. If you do, it cannot be destroyed by battle, but shuffle it into the deck during the end phase of your next turn. You can only use this effect of Angeli once per turn, and with this card, you can set up a monster in the graveyard to then banish off of Hootcake to give you a special summon of another card as well. I'll be going over a lot of the combos that you can do with this deck at the end of the video, so stay tuned for it. But for the last of the 3 ofs, 3 copies of Petting Cess Soar with this card, having the shuffle back effect as well. And if you have no monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. If it's special summon, you can special summon 1 Madolche monster from your hand or deck, except for Petting Cess Soar, and then reduce its level by 1. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn, except for Madolche monsters. So this card lets you grab Pudding Cess, making it a level 4 monster. Then you can use Pudding Cess and Petting Cess Soar to overlay into a rank 4 Madolche Xyz monster, and then go into Chocolate a la Mode with its own Xyz effect using a rank 4 Madolche monster, and then having Pudding Cess attached onto it to then use for its additional card effects. For the 2 ofs for the Madolche cards we run, 2 copies of Hootcake, having the banish effect. As I mentioned before, you can target a monster in your graveyard, banish it. If you do, special summon 1 Madolche monster from your deck, except for Hootcake. Going to use this effect once per turn. Our better target is normally Messengelato, so then we have the spell and trap search effect of Messengelato to make use of, but Hootcake helps to also clear out our graveyard of any unnecessary monsters that we may not want in there, to then benefit from our other cards we run that have the additional card effects while we control no monsters in our graveyard. With the last of the Madolche monsters being 2 copies of Messengelato. Now, I thought of running 1 copy and putting in a Mewfuel. It could be a player preference at that point if you want to run Mewfuel as just another hand extender, but still, a good amount of our cards in our hand you want to open up with are Angeli, Tiara, Angeli, I always forgetting the name of Petting Cess Soar, and then also just Magdalene to start off a good number of our plays. You can easily have your Mewfuel hand trapped, and then you're stuck in that one play to begin with. For our hand traps in the deck, we run 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring and 3 copies of Dimension Shifter. Now, these are in here just so we have the additional monsters to drop to the graveyard for cards like Hootcake, but once again with Dimension Shifter as well. If this card's sent, you can disrupt a good number of your opponent's plays, but also keep monsters out of your own graveyard for the following turn, and just have the 1 target for Hootcake to banish the lone shifter in your graveyard, keeping it so then you have access to the Petting Cess Soar plays, but also stopping your opponent for any of their graveyard plays they may have tried to do as well. And then lastly, for the main deck monsters, 2 copies of Herald of the Orange Light. This card was recently, unrestricted from the latest ban list, having another monster to stop monster effects of our opponents, and having plenty of fairy monsters to discard off of this card as well, to make use of its quick effect when your opponent activates a monster effect to negate the activation and destroy it. Moving on now to the spells, I run 3 copies of Madolche Salon. A continuous spell during your main phase, you can normal summon 1 Madolche monster in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. If another Madolche card you control or in your graveyard is added to your hand or shuffled into your main deck by a card effect, set 1 Madolche spell or trap directly from your deck, except for Madolche Salon. You can only use the effect of Salon once per turn, but Salon is definitely important because then it just has the option for if another Madolche card you control is added or shuffled into the deck, which is the main playstyle of them to begin with, to then grab the 1-ofs that we run for our Madolche cards, including the 1 Madolche Ticket and the 1 Chateau, being a field spell that shuffles back cards, but also boosts the attack of your Madolche cards, and also can add it back to your hand if they were to shuffle back into the deck instead. Ticket adding a monster every time one of them is shuffled back, a different card than what was shuffled back, but being able to summon them out if you control a Madolche face-up fairy monster as well, whether it be Pudding Cess or any of our Xyz monsters, all meeting that fairy requirement. Salon just helps as being the needed card to search off of cards like Messengelato and then grab your additional cards when you use the shuffle back effects. For some of our other spells, 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. We run a good number of multiples for some of the Madolche monsters, so having some banished targets for them and then some of the additional cards we run in the deck just to get the particular search we may need off of Prosperity definitely does come in handy, so a definite 3 of. I ran Desires, I believe, in my last video, which was a good number of, it was almost over a year at this point, so prefer the Prosperity now that's also more readily available, with the last of the spells being 1 Call by the Grave and the 1 Monster Reborn, just more resource extension and stopping any of our opponent's hand traps to keep us from not special summoning. And then for the traps, the 1 copy of Madolche Promenade, target a face-up monster card your opponent controls, and 1 Madolche you control in the graveyard, negate the effects of the opponent's card, and then return your monster to your hand, and then being able to banish this card from the graveyard to target a Madolche Xyz monster you control, and attach 1 Madolche monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard to it as material. So another way to grab Pudding Cess to attach onto our Chocolat a la mode, and then gain the additional card effects through that method as well by using this trap to do so. Also, with the latest ban list, we have the 1 Goes in Match and the 1 Rivalry now to make use of. The attribute lock for Goes in Match, which we mostly just run the earth monsters that we want to summon out to begin with, and Rivalry means we can only control 1 type of monster, which really, once again, isn't a restriction because we have a good number of fairy monsters, but also this could limit your opponent a good number of ways as well. But once again, restricted by fairies means that you can just stick to a couple of the cards and still go into a good number of your extra deck monsters, with the rest of the main deck traps being 2 copies of Different Dimension Ground, a good going first card. I always side out if I go second, but this turn any monsters into the graveyard banished instead, so a good way to keep your graveyard empty as well with your Madolche cards. And the last of the traps being 3 Infinite Impermanence, just once again hand trap of choice, along with the many others that we run in the deck. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 2 copies of Madolche Tiramisu. Once per turn, you can detach 1 from this card, target up to 2 Madolche cards in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, then shuffle cards your opponent control into the deck up to the number of Madolche cards returned. This effect does not target, so you have very easy access to get rid of a good number of your opponent's cards on the field before they try and react to Tiramisu. Being a fairy monster, it can get the additional boost, and for that shuffle back power, if you work in tandem with cards like Salon, giving you search and setup for additional Madolche spells setting up on the field with one of the easier shuffle back effects to use. We also run the 2 copies of Madolche Teacher, Glass Souffle, being able to use this card for protection, but also shuffle back of our own cards, activating, just like Tiramisu, shuffle back effects quite easily while controlling a fairy monster. The 3 copies of Chocolat a la mode, because with this card, being able to Xyz summon it on top of a rank 4 Xyz Madolche monster we run, but then also while it has Pudding Cess material, when a Madolche card in your graveyard is shuffled into the main deck, you can detach 1 from this card to special summon a Madolche monster from your deck in attack position or face down defense position, giving you more resources to extend into more and more extra deck plays to begin with. For the other Xyz monsters, the 1 copy of Baguska, the 1 Tornado Dragon, and the 1 Zeus to wrap up our Xyz lineup, with our Link monsters being 2 copies of Madolche Fresh Sistart, protection for our spell and traps in the form of a Link monster that we just need 2 Madolche monsters to make, and then the other Link monsters being 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Barricade Board Blocker, and the 1 Nightmare Unicorn for just Link options if need be to go into. Barricade Board Blocker I especially like with all the continuous spells and the field spell that we run in this deck to at least be able to recycle. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I mentioned before, one of the easier ones is if you open up Madolche and you are able to resolve the card effect, you can then activate Madolche, adding your Petting Cestor to your hand. Then, since you control no monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon this card out onto the field. And when it's special summon, you can special summon a Madolche monster from your deck and then reduce this level by 1. So you can summon out your Pudding Cess, making it a level 4 monster as well. And then from there, you can overlay the 2 together into your Madolche Glass Souffle, because once again, your graveyard is completely empty, with the quick effect being you can detach 1 from this card to target a Madolche monster in the field. This turn, that face of monsters unaffected by monster effects. If a Madolche card is sent to your graveyard while this card's on the field, you can shuffle up to 2 cards from the graveyards into the deck. You can use this effect once per turn, so you have the detach option with this card, wanting to keep the Pudding Cess on, but still, you can also use the Glass Souffle as the option to then overlay into your Chocolat a la mode. And then with this card as well, when this card has Madolche Pudding Cess, when a Madolche card in your graveyard is shuffled into the main deck, except during the damage step, you can detach 1 to special. So if your opponent has a monster on the field, you can always cast the additional Madolche into that monster, destroying it, shuffling it back into the deck, then using the Chocolat a la mode, detaching 1 off of it to give you a special summon from the main deck onto the field. Depending on the special summon, you can go for the Hoot Cake, and then you have the monster in the graveyard to banish off of the Hoot Cake, and then you can use that one to summon out your Messengelato. Messengelato can search out Salon. Salon can be activated. You can go for the Link 2 play using your 2 Madolche monsters to then summon out your Fresh Sistart, protecting your continuous spells, having more of the shuffle back option as well, depending on what you used. One of the other plays comes into the form of our Madolche Angeli, having this card as our summon, tributing it out to then give you your Hoot Cake on the field. You have the Angeli tributed in the graveyard, banishing it off of the Hoot Cake once again, and then going for the special summon play, as we mentioned before, you can go for Petting Cestor to give you another special summon of a monster from your deck onto the field, or you can grab the Messengelato as well, and then with this card, with the play of your monsters, you can go for a Link 2 summon into Fresh Sistart, and don't forget you had the search off of your Messengelato once again to grab a spell of choice if you summon out Fresh Sistart, and then have your additional Madolche monsters. You may just have that 1 additional normal summon that you can use with Salon, giving you 1 additional search off of those cards also. You just need to remember with this card, with the pointing of the card effects, if a card on the field will be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can shuffle the cards in the graveyard as well. So this can give you a shuffle back, and then you can use Fresh Sistart to set up the Salon and the other spells that you may want on your field also. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, I always love updating Madolches. They're one of my favorite decks. Big thanks to my wife for actually giving me the idea, because she actually reminded me that I hadn't updated this deck in a while. So once again, big thanks to her. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.